UDO'S CHOICE. UDO'S CHOICE er en fedtsyre, og samtidig også en af de bedste, der findes på markedet, specielt fordi processen, det bliver lavet med det, man kalder en koldpresset proces, er en af dem, der sparer allermest på den konsistens og samtidig sammensætning af fedtsyre, som du finder i produktet. Der er tale om omega-3, 6 og 9 fedtsyrer fra primært vegetabilske kilder, og det er samtidig også økologiske produkter, som fås i både 500 ml, 250 ml og 90 kapsler. For dem af os, der ikke synes, at flydende olie er lige noget for os, specielt smagsmæssigt. Men det er absolut noget af det bedste, vi har inden for den kategori. Det er også noget, som samtidig er langt undervurderet hos de fleste, specielt folk, der træner meget seriøst, fordi det altså har nogle fantastiske indvirkninger på kroppen, både sundhedsmæssigt, men også helt klart helbredsmæssigt i forhold til at skulle restituere efter træning blandt andet. Så hvis du står og mangler lidt fedt i kosten og skal have noget af det bedste, der findes, så er UDO'S CHOICE i en af de 3 størrelser helt klart noget for dig.
A lot of controversy about where does UDO's oil fit and where do the fish oils fit, and the whole story in marketing has become quite confusing. So the point of what I want to do today is to try and clarify where each of these different oils belongs, if it belongs in the diet at all. And so we're going to call this oil blend, fish oil, flax, and cooking oils. Before I do that, I just wanted to very briefly point out there's an article called Death by Medicine, and it's on Gary Null's website, and it comes to the conclusion by looking at the research that's been done and the documents that have been kept on deaths through medical interventions, that the #1 cause of death in the US today is medical intervention. About 100,000 times higher than cardiovascular disease, which in turn is about 150,000 times higher than cancer. And there's a measure by which even about 1 million people die every year from medical interventions. On the other hand, deaths from food, water, air, and light is about 0. Actually, you can get too much water, it's called drowning. And I guess deaths from junk foods are probably pretty high as well, but not from what's going on in the health food trade. And death from supplements is also very low, like about 0 these days. Second, there is a comprehensive article that was put together by the UK Vegetarian and Vegan Foundation this year, and it's called Fishing for Facts. This is information put together without my input, so it's not about me and my products. It is independent verification for the benefits of the seed oils and versus the fish oils, and they take it from the research, and it's a good foundation for you when you talk to people. And then there's another article which is called Humans Turn ALA or UDO's Oil into EPA, DHA, or fish oil, and you'll find that on my website www.rightfatdiet.com. So we're going to try to make sense of the controversy in the marketplace between UDO's blend and fish and flax and cooking oils and margarines. And here are the questions that we're going to ask. First, what is the market for UDO's oil blend? Is it the fish oil market? Is it the flax oil market? Or the cooking oil and margarine market? I think that's important because I think we've lost some focus on what is the positioning for the oil blend. Second question, is fish oil enough? Third question, is seed oil enough? Fourth question, should we use both, and if so, how? Fifth question, how toxic is toxic? Are industrial toxins a concern in either seed or fish oils? Are they completely removed by processing? How much remains? And are tests for toxins in fish oils adequate? What are the limits of detection? Sixth question, is there organic fish? Is there organic seed oil? 7, what about processing damaging in fish oils? What about processing damage in seed oils? 8, does the body convert alpha-linolenic acid, the seed omega-3, into EPA, DHA, the fish omega-3s? And what is the research evidence for that? 9, can we get too much seed oil? Can we get too much fish oil? And what are the symptoms of getting too much seed oil, too much fish oil? So question 1, what is our market? Why UDO's oil instead of cooking oils? When I began to develop the methods for making oils with health in mind. That came out of reading the research on the damage done to cooking oils, to the seed oils that people buy in the supermarkets, that are treated with Drano, then with window washing acid, then bleached, which turns them rancid, and then are heated to frying temperature to deodorize them, to get rid of the rancid odor that comes from the first three processes. Drano, window washing acid, bleach. So we say, for short, those oils have been treated with Drano, window washing acid, bleach, and fried before they go in the bottle. And damage is done to those oils, and the processing is done to extend the shelf life of the oils. And my view was, we ought to be making oils with health rather than shelf life in mind. 1983, I developed methods for doing that. 1986, we started making flax oil by that method, and the UDO'S CHOICE oil blend is made by those methods. We protect the light from the oil from light, oxygen, and heat. The temperature is low. We put it in dark containers to protect them from damage done by light. They're nitrogen flushed to protect them from oxygen, and we refrigerate them to keep the heat down, because that too does damage to the oils. Fundamentally, right from the beginning, it was always a question of switching people off the damaged cooking oils and onto similar seed oils made with health in mind. Okay? So that was the first reason for why I developed the oils that I work with. The second is, what about flax oil? I developed flax oil in 1986. That was the first oil made with health in mind. And the reason I developed it is because when I did my research, it became really clear how little omega-3 there is in the diet, and we doubled omega-6s. And in 1981, the year after I began doing this research, it was shown that omega-3 deficiency is, or omega-3s are down to 16% of what people got in 1850. They were already not getting enough then, and that omega-3s are essential just like omega-6s are essential. Now, it was known about omega-6s in 1930, for omega-3s in 81. So the timing was very good for looking at omega-3s. And flax oil was my first choice for an oil to develop. It is the most sensitive to destruction, and that's because it has the most omega-3s, about twice as much omega-3 as what you find in the omega-3 rich fish oils. And then the question of fish oil. Why seed omega-3s versus fish omega-3s? Way back then when I started in 1986, it was already known that fish oils are damaged by processing, just like seed oils are, only more because they're more sensitive. And it was already known that there's environmental toxins in the fish and in the fish oil, but it was not at that time yet widely publicized. And because it was possible to get organically grown seeds that didn't have pesticides and didn't have industrial toxins in them, I chose, for the sake of non-toxicity, to go with organically grown seed oils. Okay? The second question, is fish oil enough? And the short answer is no. And why is that? Well, an average diet has 2,000 calories, and a gram of fat has 9 calories. If you got 10% of your diet from fat, that would be 22 grams of fat a day. That's a low-fat diet. And on a diet like that, you're doing minimum oil, you will get dry skin and low energy levels, and if you stay on it long enough, you'll get lots of other problems. This is 22 grams of fat per day. If you get less than that, at 5%, you get poor absorption of the oil-soluble nutrients, including vitamin A, D, E, and K, and there is increased cancer associated with diets that has less than 5% of calories from fat, because there's simply not enough fat to get the fat-soluble vitamin A absorbed. The highest dose of fish oil that is recommended is 3 to 10 grams. 3 to 10 grams is 27 to 90 calories per day, and is actually 1.35 to 4.5% of daily calorie intake. So you're not even making the 5% from fat that is required to prevent increased cancer from vitamin A malabsorption. Okay? you're getting less than half of the low-fat diet at 10%. And the conclusion is that if you took no oil in your diet except fish oil, that would kill you from fat deficiency. Second, if you compare that to what we're doing, we recommend tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day of oil, the way we make the oils, and that gets you 28 to 42 grams per day, which is about 252 to 378 calories per day, which is 12.6 to 18.9% of total daily calorie intake in a 2,000 calorie diet. So you're above the low fat diet, and if you want to, you can go up to 50% of calories from fats if they're not damaged and not toxic, and have enough of the omega-3 and 6 that are essential in them, and never die of a fat-related disease. We know that from the Inuit, because on their traditional diets, they would get up to 60% of their calories from fats, and they did not die of the plugged arteries, the cancer, the cardio, the diabetes, and they didn't get the arthritis that we associate with too little fat or the wrong kinds of fats. Okay? They had their own problems, but they were not fat-related. Is seed oil enough? Well, there's a certain amount of evidence for that answer to be yes. For instance, gorillas, bonobos, orangutans, and chimps, who are our closest relatives in terms of physiological function, genetic material, brain size, they eat nothing but vegetables, and they have DHA in their brain, their eye, and their sperm. If you don't make enough DHA, you go sterile, and because they're required for sperm function as well as brain function. Horses, cows, sheep, goats, and rabbits also have DHA in their brain, their eyes, and their sperm, and they only eat grass. There are many vegetarian birds, and they also have DHA in their brain. And if you look at human populations of the past, you had coast and lake dwellers who ate fish and got the EPA and DHA pre-made. And you had people who lived on the steppes who did not eat fish. And the brains of both groups are the same size, they're the same smart, and they have about the same amount of DHA in the diet if they're eating a diet of natural whole foods, which traditionally they did. And in the present North American population, fish consumption is rather low. Fish oil consumption is rather low because it's only a small % of the population that uses fish oils, either in fish or in capsules. And their consumption of pork, beef, chicken, turkey, dairy is high. Those are low in EPA and DHA. And unless they would eat the brain, the eyeballs, and the sperm of those animals, which they don't. And still, they have as much DHA in their brain, their eyes, and their sperm as the people who do eat fish. And then you can look at a cultural diet, the Hindu diet in India. They ate dairy products. There's virtually no EPA and DHA in dairy. And everything else they ate is vegetables, and they don't cheat. They don't eat a fish once in a while. This is a strict culture, and they have brains as big as ours, and they're as smart as we are, and they have as much DHA in their brain as we do. So the conclusion you have to come to is that the facility for converting seed omega-3s into fish omega-3s is well developed and active in any of the creatures that need to do that. But what it does require is that you get enough starting material. If you don't get any seed oil omega-3s, then obviously you're not going to do much conversion. So we did a survey on the oil blend in the United States where we inserted a form into the box next to the bottle. We got about 750 replies, of which, and there was a contest there, people could win something. So 218 people filled it out, even though they had just started using the oil. It was the first bottle. So they didn't see any results. So I took those out of the numbers that I worked with, and 532 people reported what they had seen using the oil. 78% of them said their skin became nicer, and some of them were ranting and raving about it. We took a subgroup that is on a weight loss program. It's called the PRISM program. They run it out of church basements in the United States. Out of 89 people, 67 had lost weight using the oil. And then I looked at all the other factors, and anywhere from 5 to 34% of the people that are using the oil reported benefits in cardiovascular disease, diabetes, digestion, bowel problems, energy, mood, inflammation, and reproductive problems. And I tried to sum them together so it wouldn't be too long. But fundamentally, these are numbers from people. This is not a sick population we're testing. This is a relatively healthy population. So if you were to take people with cardiovascular disease and put them on a program like that, you would get results actually quite similar to what the fish oils do. And we have seen that, although this is the feedback that we have consistently in talking to people and getting feedback from people who use the oil blend for the past 10 years. It does what the fish oils do, but you get a wider range of benefits. But we also use quite a bit more oil, right? We're using 2 to 3 tablespoons. We're not using 3 to 10 grams. 1 tablespoon is 14 grams. So the question then becomes, should you use both seed oil and fish oils? And if so, how? And what we recommend is that you build the base with the blend, because what you're trying to do, if you want to make people healthier, is you want to take them off the cooking oils they use. And most people use 2 or 3 tablespoons of cooking oil a day in their food. Those are toxic. You want them off those. You want to switch them to an oil that is made with their health in mind, that gets them the 3s and 6s, and that is, so you basically want to switch them out. Minimum intake, a teaspoon per day, will get you some cardiovascular benefits. Our optimum is a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, and you mix it with food, you spread it out over the course of the day so that you don't get nausea, because that's one of the symptoms from giving your liver too much at any one time. And if you don't like the taste, one of the best way to lose the oil taste is to mix it in applesauce or put it on fruit juice. Once you've built the base to the level that your skin is soft and smooth, that's how we measure optimum, then if fish oils get you more benefits, try them and see if they get you more benefits. There are some people who convert more slowly than others, and those would be the people, can't be a lot of people, but those would be the people who would particularly benefit. If the conversion wasn't effective in everybody, we would not even have been born if our mother wasn't eating fish. And there are probably a lot of us whose mothers didn't eat fish, but here we are. How toxic is toxic? There are no safe limits for the oil-soluble toxins, especially PCBs and dioxins, and they cause liver, kidney, brain damage, cause mutation, cause cancer, and cause birth defects. And they're everywhere on the planet. There is no place that is completely clean, but fundamentally where they most likely go, they get dumped on the land, they go downhill to the ocean with the water, and because they're oil soluble, they will accumulate in anything that has oil in it in the ocean. So that'd be your whales, your seals, your fatty fish. The more fat in the fish, the more of these PCBs it will absorb, and the higher the creature is on the food chain, the more of it will absorb. So that means tuna and salmon, which are high, are going to be more contain more toxins than herring and trout. Trout's also high. Herring and sardines, which are quite a bit lower, and those in turn are higher than what you would find in krill, which in turn is higher than what you find in the algae that contain DHA. Is it possible to completely remove these toxins? The answer is no. In fact, if you deodorize an oil, one of the main reasons that's done, aside from the rancidity, is to remove the pesticides from the seed oils, from the cooking oils. But only 50% of them is removed by deodorization. And in the process, oil molecules are damaged. And the same thing is true with the PCBs and dioxins that you find in fish oil, and you get processing damage to the fish oil in the process of trying to remove them, because it's called molecular distillation, and that's a synonym for deodorization. You can pull a vacuum on it and make the temperature a little lower, but it's still a high temperature, harsh, damaging process. And the fish oils are the fish oil omega-3s are 25 times more sensitive than the seed oil omega-6s, which are deodorized and for which we have good numbers. So how much remains? The answer is always too much. And how do we know it remains? That depends on what tests are used to test for toxins in fish oils. In North America, there is a test that is used commercially that is sensitive to 1 part per million. And when you use that test, the fish oils, a lot of the fish oils look pretty good. Some of them look bad even on that test. But in Europe, it is now mandatory to test the fish oils with a test that is 20,000 times more sensitive than what we're using. And they are sensitive to 0.02 parts per billion instead of 1 part per million. And when fish oils are tested by that test, all the ones that have been tested so far that I've seen, there hasn't been a single one that did not have PCBs and dioxins in it. Okay? So the question is, what are the limits of detection? And when people say, I know there's been on television, on major television, they talked about how toxic the fish oils were and how clean how toxic the fish were and how clean the fish oils were. And the fish oils test limit of detection was 1 part per million. It would be a really good idea to have the more sensitive test brought into North America. So far, that hasn't been done. So the solution to dealing with the toxins, since you can't get them out once they're in a seed or once they're in an oil, is you go organic. Organic is also not perfect, but it is a lot better. When we've tested the oil blend by the same sensitive test used in Europe, it comes up clean on PCBs and dioxins. Okay? Is there organic fish oil? You can't isolate a piece of water or a piece of ocean and grow organic fish because water moves all the time. And there are people who have tried to get fish certified organic. In fact, up in Alaska, where the cleanest fish are, they were not able to do it because of that issue. You can't isolate a piece of ocean. You can isolate a piece of land. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, and you can avoid a lot of the toxicity, and then you don't have to damage the oil by the processing to try and remove it. So the more care you take at the front end, the less of a mess you make at the back end for not taking the care. So once again, go organic. Processing, does it damage EFAs? Yes, EFAs are the single most sensitive essential nutrient to damage. Omega-3s 5 times more sensitive than omega-6s, seed omega-3s that is. Fish omega-3s 5 times more sensitive to damage than seed omega-3s. And they need to be protected from light, oxygen, and heat in a way that no other nutrient needs to be protected. So even the processing is an issue. If you squeeze a seed, you get an oil. If you do that under protection from light, oxygen, and heat, it's a very simple process, and you have in that oil all of the antioxidants and the lecithin and the phytosterols and the other minor ingredients that belong with oils. If you squeeze a fish, you get a mess. And fundamentally, that's what they do. Then you get a mess, then you have to clean up all the mess that goes with it, right? They use the fish heads, they use the guts, they use the eyeballs, they use the skin, because they cut the fillet off and sell the fillet, and then the rest goes flipped in a barrel, and sometimes it sits there for 2 weeks before they process it with no protection from anything, okay? And so it's a much more difficult process with an oil that is much more sensitive to damage. In the seed oils, when they're treated with Drano, window washing acid, then bleached and then fried before they go in the bottle, about 0.5 to 1% of the oil molecules are damaged, and they're made very toxic. And they're not trans fatty acids. Some of them are, but there's all kinds of other things, polymerized and cyclized and cross-linked and double bond shifted and fragmented molecules. And they're very toxic. And in 1 tablespoon of cooking oil, you will get 1 million toxic molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells if that oil has been damaged 1% by the processing. That's a huge number of toxic molecules. And it's another reason why I was so concerned about making oils with health rather than shelf life in mind when I began. Now, what about the conversion of ALA, the seed omega-3, to EPA, DPA, and DHA, the fish oil omega-3s? And the research evidence, I just gave 2 human studies. Burgess' study was done in 2002, and he did one where he had 6 women in the one study, and he did a second study where he had 6 men. And he found that women converted 36% of the alpha-linolenic acid they were given into EPA, DPA, and DHA. 21% of it became EPA, 6% became DPA, and 9% became DHA. And they actually were not on the kind of diet we recommend, so we think that on the diet we recommend, the conversion would be even more effective. We'll talk about that in a second. The men converted 16%, 8% into EPA, 8% into DPA, none into DHA in that study, but there's another study where 17% was converted in men and DHA was produced. Now, Burgess' study is being used to say, well, men at least should all take fish oils because the body can't convert. It was one study with 6 men. The problem is if you have enough DHA, it inhibits conversion. If they ate fish before they started the study, and that wasn't controlled for, then the conversion would be slowed down by that. We'll get to that a little later. And then there was a study this year that was published 2004, and what they claim from all the studies on conversion that have been done is that on average of the alpha-linolenic acid, the seed omega-3 that a person gets, 5 to 10% will be converted into EPA, and of the alpha-linolenic acid that a person gets, 2 to 5% will be converted into DHA in the body. Okay? Those are the numbers from the studies, and this is not out of date. If somebody says that I'm using old figures, this is 2004 work. Okay? So let's do the math on that. If you use the lowest rate of conversion, 2% conversion of alpha-linolenic acid to DHA, because that's what the controversy is about, then if we give people a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, because that is what we recommend, that'll be about 20% of a 2,000 calorie diet. Then in a woman who weighs 100 pounds, she will get 2 tablespoons, which is 28 grams, of which 14 grams is ALA, alpha-linolenic acid, and 2% would be 280 milligrams of DHA that she would produce at the lowest level of conversion, 280 milligrams. If a man weighed 150 pounds, he gets 3 tablespoons, and his conversion would be to 420 milligrams. If a person gets 3 capsules of fish oil, which is the usual recommendation, and that fish oil contains 18% EPA and 12% DHA, which is what the good ones do, then that person will get 120 milligrams per capsule or 360 milligrams per day of DHA from the fish oil. And between 280 and 420, what they get from fish oil is right in the middle between what we get from our 2 or 3 tablespoons of Udo's Choice oil blend. Conclusion is, even at the lowest rate, which is 2%, the amount of alpha-linolenic acid converted to DHA is 280 milligrams for women, 420 milligrams for men, which is almost the same as what the fish oils provide. Now, the national average intake of EPA plus DHA is 130 milligrams, and about 52 milligrams of that is DHA. That comes also from that same study. And then the question is the rate of conversion. What affects the rate of conversion of alpha-linolenic acid to DHA? And the factors that increase conversion, number one, high omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. Well, we have that. Our ratio is twice as much omega-3 as omega-6. So we might get even better conversion because we're doing that. Because in Burgess' study, where he got 9% in women converted, not 2 to 5, but 9% converted into DHA. In that study, they had 7.6 times more omega-6 than omega-3 in the diet. Okay? So you would expect that to get you a slower rate of conversion. Phytosterols, they speed the conversion of both delta-6 and delta-5 desaturase. They increase their activity, and we have 65 milligrams per tablespoon in every tablespoon of oil. If you have GLA in the diet, that speeds conversion because now delta-6 desaturase doesn't have to be used on omega-6s. We have some GLA in the diet, so that should help too. Phytoestrogens, or estrogens, improve conversion. And the researchers think that's why women convert more quickly than men, more than double actually in Burgess' study. And wholesome fast food blend is the richest source of phytoestrogens, and it's a good reason why people should use the wholesome fast food blend with their oil, and they mix very well. I have them for breakfast as a mix of applesauce, oil, and wholesome fast food blend, and it is unbelievably yummy. I add water because there's a lot of fiber in that. If you have more protein in the diet, that seems to help to convert. And most important is the amount of starting material. If you don't have enough alpha-linolenic acid in the diet, you won't get enough conversion, and we make sure people get enough alpha-linolenic acid in their diet. And there's one more very important factor. Burgess' study, and most of the studies are done on body conversion, but the brain, there is research, absorbs alpha-linolenic acid very rapidly, but there's never much there. And the brain is 2 to 6 times faster at conversion than the body is. Lucky for us, because it's in the brain where the DHA is so important and is so much needed. And since nature's had about 4.5 billion years to put the program together, it makes sense that the organ that requires the most DHA would also be the organ set up to be most effective at making it. Okay, so if you look at all of that, conversion is really not a big problem if you get enough starting material. That is the biggest single issue. Now, if we're down to 16% of what people got 150 years ago, and they weren't getting enough then of the seed omega-3, then there is where our big problem is. That's why we need to be increasing omega-3 intake. Now, what decreases conversion? CLA decreases conversion. CLA is a trans fatty acid and inhibits both omega-3 and omega-6 conversion. This is not a good thing for health. And of course, other trans fatty acids also do. High-carb diets inhibit conversion, probably because the excess carbs get turned into fat, and the fats compete for enzyme space with the omega-3s for conversion. The same thing is true for saturated fats, for monounsaturated fats, for omega-6s. They all compete for the same enzymes. And DHA inhibits conversion because there's a feedback system that says, I've got enough, don't make any more, or I need more, make more. So DHA in the diet will inhibit conversion. And there are some people who convert more slowly than others, and I call that people who have slow conversion genes. That's the only factor we can't control. And these are the people who should build their base with the seed oil and then use fish oil or use EPA and DHA products in addition. Now, what about the other ingredients in oils? In the seed oils, you have phytosterols. They're good for cardio and immune function. You have the oil-soluble antioxidants, keratin, other seed-specific ones, and we also add tocotrienols. You have lecithin, which is GMO-free, and you have natural color and flavor molecules. In fish oils, no phytosterols, no antioxidants other than the vitamin E that's added, no lecithin that's removed, and no color and flavor molecules. So some of these ingredients that are also beneficial and are important in fat metabolism are missing. And then the question, can we get too much seed oil? Yes, we can. If you take more at any one time than your liver can handle, you'll feel heavy or you'll get nauseous. And if you were to take more on top of nauseous, you would throw up. This is the way your liver protects itself from overwork. And it's why we tell people to mix them in food, spread them out over the course of the day to make sure you never overload liver capacity. Sometimes when people start, they get a skin rash. We think that's detox. It's fairly rare. And we know this happens from people who were poisoned by Agent Orange when they made them sweat, gave them oil to sweat out the oil-soluble Agent Orange through the skin. They would get a skin rash from the toxic effects of this toxin, of this toxin on its way out. Now, it's still better to get a skin rash because if you force them through your liver and your kidneys, they wreck those organs. The skin rash goes away, your liver and kidneys can be damaged. Occasionally somebody will get looser stools. One of the reasons for that is if you don't have enough oil in the diet, you don't get the barrier in the skin against the loss of moisture formed in your skin. Then you lose water through your skin, get dehydrated, and then your body will pull water out of the stool where it needs it least to put it in the body where it needs it more. Okay? And when you then start doing it and building the barrier, then for maybe as long as 2 weeks, it takes the body to adjust to that and to change things and to not suck the water out of the stool, and because it stays in the stool, your bowels get looser. Now, a large part of the population would benefit from having looser stools. They're the ones who are constipated, right? And then occasionally people will get brain fog. 2 to 6 weeks is the longest we've seen that last. Often has to do with candida or other toxicity. And the place where we see that the most is Ireland. And I think it's because they didn't pay much attention to their environment when they were a poor country, and they're just beginning to do that. So they're dealing with a lot of pollution, toxicity, carbohydrate diets, because they love their potatoes. And so we've seen that mainly in Ireland, but occasionally that will happen. How about fish oil? Symptoms of too much fish oils. The symptoms would be due to either to damaged molecules or to industrial toxins or to getting more than the body needs because you don't have a feedback system when you take the fish oils. You do have a feedback system when you take the seed oils. There's research that shows if you take more than 5.1 grams of fish oils a day, sometimes people are recommended 10, but if you take more than 5.1 grams of fish oil per day, you can increase inflammation in people under oxidative stress. That's remarkable because fish oils are given to decrease inflammation, but after 5.1 grams, they can actually increase inflammation. And when you increase inflammation, you can increase arthritis, both rheumatoid and osteo, allergy in any tissues, autoimmune in any tissues, cardio problems, some cancers, diabetes, and also bone connective tissue, tissue gland, and organ problems. Inflammation in those organs is often the basis for degeneration of those organs. Now, who is under oxidative stress? Anyone who doesn't get enough exercise, who has poor circulation, who is acidic or not alkaline enough. One of the ways to get there is not getting enough oxygen from breathing, not enough oxygen through the system by poor circulation, but also lack of calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium, the major minerals. Anyone who has inflammation, anyone who suffers from any of the common degenerative diseases, arthritis, diabetes, cardio, cancer, allergies, and autoimmune conditions, anyone who has too many toxins in their system, anyone who breathes too shallow. So the questions we've asked: what is the market for Udo's oil blend? Is it fish oils? Is it flax oil? Or is it cooking oils and margarines? Or is it even hemp oil? Hemp oil has 1/3 as much omega-3 as omega-6. We have twice as much omega-3 as omega-6. You will always get better results with the omega-3s because they are the single most widespread essential nutrient deficiency of our time. And that's why you see, and the research actually says if you increase omega-3s in the diet, you improve virtually every major degenerative disease of our time. That's why they're so hot these days. That's why everybody wants in on it. So the question is, what is the market? So what is the market? Is it the fish oil market? Not fundamentally. It's actually the big market, and the big market is to switch people off the damaged cooking oils to oils made with health in mind. Okay? Fish oil is also a market, but it's a secondary market. And flax oil, the reason why I switched from flax to the blend is because flax oil was the first oil I developed, and I became omega-6 deficient on it. People tell you, don't worry about the omega-6s. People get lots in their diet. Yes, but they're the damaged ones. So the people who say that are not thinking about health. And what we did in making the blend is we have in there omega-6s also made with health in mind, as well as omega-3s made with health in mind, and enough so people do not become omega-6 deficient from using, like they can, from using flax oil. Okay. Is fish oil enough? I think the answer is no. Is seed oil enough? I think the answer is yes for most people. Should we use both? No problem using both. Build your base with the oil, because we're talking about a major nutrient here. And then take fish oils on top if you want to, if you need to. Remember, if you take them, you have toxicity and you have processing damage, and that is going to be part of what you get from the fish oil. Okay? How toxic is toxic? And we talked about the limits of detection. If you use the sensitive tests that are mandatory in Europe, but not yet mandatory here, all the fish oils that have been tested have come up with PCBs and dioxins in them. So the limits of detection is the key question that needs to be answered. And you need to get it documented from independent labs. It can't be done by in-house, oh yeah, we did a test. It really has to be. There's only one lab in the UK that is actually authorized to do these tests. We talked about organic fish oil versus organic seed oil. We talked about processing damage. We talked about conversion. And we talked about what would be too much of either the seed oils or the cooking oils. And hopefully this has been helpful to you. I think it's pretty thorough. I have not seen a reason to change what I began to do in 1986 or what I began to do with the blend in 1994. Every time I see the requirement for a change, I'll make it. I just have not ever seen a reason to change what I'm doing. If I thought fish oils would make it better, I'd use them. See, I get to make the formula, so I get to decide. If I thought CLA would make it better, I'd put it in there. But I don't think so. It makes it worse. If I thought margarine was good in our cooking oils, I'd throw margarine in there. See, for me, it's only about health. It's only ever been about health. Okay? And so I hope it helps to kind of unconfuse the marketing confusion in the industry. Thank you.